It's time for the Austrian Grand Prix here in Season 2 of the Ferrari Motorsport Manager, even though it's F1 Manager. But love this game. It's unreal. But we've a wet race scheduled for Sunday, so I kind of petered the car towards more of a downforce setup, even though Austria is more, of course, straight line speed because it is a very short track with quite a decent amount of straights. But as you can see, going into Q3, I do think it did affect this, but lighting up P6 and P7 wasn't too bad of a deal. But as I've seen here, I looked at the weather forecast and with rain scheduled pretty much for lap 2, I've took a risk here. I started Leclerc on softs, I started Carlos Sainz on the intermediates, and I thought, fuck it, you may as well risk it for a biscuit and see if this is going to last, because, if it starts raining on lap 1, Carlos Sainz is going to look like an absolute goat. He's going to look like an absolute champion. Now, if it stays bone dry, Carlos Sainz is going to look like a dick. So as the 5 the 5 red lights go out, Red Bull have a front row, Carlos Sainz just doesn't get away, ends up blocking half the grid at the back, and it turns out the gamble that we took on the intermediate tyre just hasn't worked. And there's quite a load of people who've started on hards, not quite the slowest getaway they've had compared to me, but again, pretty stupid. But at this point I was like, fuck it, we've got to push Carlos Sainz, we've got to push everything, we've also got to push Charles Leclerc. But yeah, a lot of people getting cost big time by that poor start there for Carlos Sainz. And as you can see, the gap between Carlos Sainz and the rest is getting bigger. But as we are speaking now, the rain is beginning to form. The track ain't getting wet, but the clouds are here. And now the rain begins to fall here on lap 3 for Sainz, but 4 for everyone else. And at this point, the track's wet enough for Inter. So Sainz is catching everybody. Everyone dives into the pits, bar a few people. Charles Leclerc, we actually stayed out with Leclerc for an extra lap. For some reason, he didn't pit. Don't really understand why. But Carlos Sainz, surprisingly, I mean, he's around the people he would have been battling anyway. And they are Alonso and Gasly, Hamilton. I mean, he's not completely out of, sync. But as you can see, we've got Charles Leclerc going for a manoeuvre here on Sergio Perez for the race lead. Manages to get up to it, but Perez gets the better exit, which I'm confused about because he's on the hard tyre. I don't understand why he's beating us here, especially, well, I mean, it is slippery conditions and, the preferred tyre is the intermediate, but you'd expect the sticky or soft to do better than the intermediate. But at this point, we've got Verstappen, who's absolutely closing us down and is going to be a pit stop clear of basically everybody, which is just very, very disappointing. But you've other cars out there who are holding up the people that we're battling, so we've actually been helped out. But the big winner in all of this is Max Verstappen. Verstappen has timed it perfectly. He's come in to the pits, he's put on the inters. Everyone else is getting held up by people on dries, which means us three, Perez and co, and Leclerc should be able to do good. But as you can see, it's fucking, you've just got such a speed difference when some cars are on inters and some cars are on dries. And as you can see, on board with Carlos Sainz, we're in an insane battle here. We've got Van Dorn, Hamilton, Alonso all battling for the same bit of tarmac. Van Dorn, though, on hard tyres. Don't know why he's staying out. He's just staying out for the sake of staying out. But at this point, Leclerc drives off the track on his inters. Not even like he's on dries. Gasly currently sitting in P2. And at this point, though, the safety car has been deployed due to an incident at the final corner. Let's see what happened here. With an AlphaTauri rejoining and just getting absolutely punted by a McLaren. It was an unsafe rejoin, if we're being honest. We fly through there in the background and the safety car is in this lap. So that has closed the pack well and truly up, which is very good news for us. And as you can see, we're restarting here with Verstappen on the intermediates. For Gasly, from Perez, from Hamilton, Alonso, Russell, Leclerc, Yuki Tsunoda somehow up in P8. Then we've got Sainz, then we've got Bottas, Magnussen, first Vettel, Norris, Schull, Ocon, Schumacher, Stroll, Van Dorn, but Ricardo and Albon both out. But again, multiple cars have crashed with Leclerc and Sainz just kind of sitting in the background. And it's just chaos in these conditions, man. People fly off. And as you see, the Williams just poleaxes the Aston Martin right into the ground. And at this point, we decided to pick Carlos Sainz for wets because the track has got extremely wet. He's just slipping and sliding though, coming out of the pit lane. We've got Gasly leading for Alonso. At this point, you've got half the grid on inters, half the grid on wets, but the track is getting drier. So the intermediate drivers are in the money, and they can't complain as Gasly leads Charles Leclerc. Now continuing on, most of the drivers that did pit for wet tyres are having to refer back to intermediates, but it still leaves us and Pierre Gasly in the lead. Verstappen and Perez, both Red Bull drivers, pitting. So Carlos Sainz, who started this race on the intermediates, is in a decent place, but we've kept him out again on the wets. So I feel sorry for Sainz. His teammates battling for the lead, and he is stuck in no man's land because we've hung him out to dry at the start and we've hung him out to dry here. Again, moving on with a Haas smashing straight into the back of Yuki Tsunoda. It's probably one of the worst weekends I've ever seen from a team point of view. Haas this weekend, the amount of cars that they've just poleaxed, Van Dorn and Magnussen, it's been a fucking disgrace. But as you can see, the track is beginning to dry out here. So we're going to pit for mediums with Carlos Sainz. He's probably the only time in this race he actually gets a decent strategy, but we've also pitted Leclerc, and we've got Bottas, Alonso and Gasly in the pit. So it looks like Leclerc's going to come out on top, but he is going to have a bit worse tyre wear, so to speak, compared to these guys. But we do come out in the lead, and now we have, how many laps is that? We've 28 laps to the finish, so hopefully we can hold on. But moving on to lap 69. Ho, 69. Yeah. Pierre Gasly goes for the overtake, but Leclerc blocks it. There's a yellow in sector 1. Fuck knows what's going on. Verstappen's in the last podium position. You've got Hamilton, Alonso battling for 4th, Bottas in 6th. Sainz, again, out the points. It's just been a disaster. We put him on soft runs, it just didn't work. And again, right, I've been talking about the Haas's this entire video, and look at this. Again, the Haas just poleaxes Lando Norris and it smashes straight into the wall. Don't know how this didn't bring out the safety car. Thankfully it didn't, or else we'd have lost this race. But now we're still in the battle. We have a lap and a half to go. We're in the DRS of Pierre Gasly, but he defends really well. Now moving on to the last lap with Gasly, we're in the DRS. Verstappen is closing in, but there's just not enough time for him. Alonso looks like he's going to get P4, and that is how we got the job done. Running the outside of Gasly, and I think us picking the medium tyre compared to the soft has helped big time, because it's just helped us extend the stint, while Gasly towards the end, his tyres have completely went off. But still, fantastic drive for Gasly. But Ferrari finally get our first win of the season with Leclerc, and it finishes Leclerc, Gasly, Verstappen, Hamilton, Alonso, Bottas, Perez, Ocon, Russell and Lando Norris. And our teammate down in P12, shouldn't have started them on the inters, shouldn't have held them out on the wets, but we did get it right with the dries. It's just the damage was done. Damage was absolutely done. So we move up a few positions with Leclerc, but we're still looking to get 3rd in the drivers and hopefully 2nd in the constructors. So until next time, that's it for Fog Racing. That's it for Austria. I believe next time is the French Grand Prix. So Sacre Bleu. Peace.